Over the last few months, thousands of Barbadians have been expressing their views on the Barbados Light and Power Company's request for an increase in rates. Next month, there will be an official hearing where a decision will be made on if the requested increase will be granted, and several interveners will be making the case to try to stop the Barbados Light and Power's proposal. I'm Cheyne Jones, and in this episode of In the Know, I sit down with one of those interveners to find out exactly how he intends to stop the increase in the rates. Mr. Went, first of all, thank you for agreeing to sit with us and discuss this topic that has been on the lips of hundreds of thousands of Barbadians over the last few months.
Yeah, most welcome. Yes.
First of all, let me ask you this question. What made you decide to become an intervener, and what exactly is the role of the intervener?
I first started in rate making way back with Kibblon Wireless. So I used to be responsible for the rate cases for the telephone company back at the time. Against me, that was the days of Well McLean, that back then would have been the Public Utilities Board. So it was that background experience. And I also ran a utility. I used to be the general manager of this Kimmerson and Kitson Nevis before I took on some regional roles, including vice president for Regional Mobile East. So with that management and regulatory background and understanding, then, that said, look, we've got a situation where now we got to try and get some equity. What does that mean? It means that Light and Power, we've got to ensure that the country can have the services to be able to provide electricity for all and safe and reliable electricity. We also, on the other hand, have the new power producers who themselves have to be, get a return on the investment because they're looking to be able to replace the fossil fuel with using renewable energy. But I also know we have the ratepayers themselves, many of whom, as you know, have been facing high costs. And on top of that, to have increases now, it's going to be a challenge. To be, at this point in time, you can tell that many people are struggling to pay their bills, many people hardly buy food, and sometimes people living from paycheck to paycheck. So we've got to find a way to balance. And that's what really got me involved.
Okay, break down what the rate hearing will be like for us. We've been hearing rate hearing all the time, but a lot of us aren't quite sure exactly what it is. Explain for us.
You're giving me, Shane, a whole semester, but I'll try to give you in a little bit of a bite. Every utility must be able to get recover its costs. It has to invest. In the case of Light and Power, there's generation, there's transmission, there's distribution. And we have to be able to get, safe, service into our households. That means considerable investment. So what regulation allows is for the utility to recover its investment over time. And those assets last for a while. So you could imagine a key aspect then would be the depreciation. Those aspects, we'll come to those things. So that's one aspect where the utility has to be able to recover its investment. At the same time, the service must be affordable. And that's affordable for consumers and businesses, especially the small and medium-sized businesses who we know employ most of the people. So the whole idea of regulation then would be the regulator looking at the cost of the utility operation. That's being scrutinized. And having done that, to be able to arrive at what is a reasonable return, and they would set rates. Now, in this case, once you want to change those rates, you have to apply to the regulator, in our case, the FTC. In that instance, then, it means that you will have interveners like myself and others, along with the staff of the commission, who would then rigorously, appraise the application, and thereafter the FTC would make a decision.
Mr. Went, from your understanding, what exactly is the Barbados Light and Power requesting?
You ask him to speak for Light and Power, but I can tell you my understanding of Light and Power. I don't want my friends at Light and Power to be able to get annoyed with me. But here's what happened. There are elements of what Light and Power is asking for. So initially, Light and Power, you would have heard of a depreciation decision, right? So they had applied for a change in the depreciation rates and policy, and that would affect generation, transmission, and distribution predominantly, along with the general plant and so on. So that decision was only recently issued by the FTC. I think it could be March, April. You would have heard that decision. So that sets the depreciation then, which become part of what I'll discuss further with you, the revenue requirements. Now, that's one aspect of what they're looking for. A second aspect that Lynnport is saying, look, you know, we're going to a competitive environment, and there are going to be some aspects of our operation that we would like to keep confidential. In principle, not unreasonable, but the question then becomes, we got to be able as interveners in the public to know that the money is being invested well. So in that particular case, there were three components that Lynnport would have raised. They would raise the investment plan and the expansion plan along with the licenses. And that would be in the confidentiality hearing. Lynnport subsequently has then agreed to release the investment plan. Now, we cannot tell you whether that's part of some of the work that we did, where prior to their releasing it, we did some research on the Florida Public Service Commission and found that their 10-year expansion plan is online. And they were able to show that they give their commitments, and you were able then after that to review how well they've done. So an example, they said they would have spent 600 million, introduced 600 megawatts of renewable energy. They were between 2018 and 2020. They were able to show that they do 623. So that's the kind of thing that you would definitely need. That's on the confidentiality plan. But so that hearing was, you know, recently, and hence the FTC is making a decision on that. The next aspect would be the interim rate relief. Now, that interim rate hearing, that also was last week, recently. So in that hearing now, what the Lynnport is saying is, look, it takes time for you to be able to make a decision on our application. We apply in October, but you may not get to us for a few months. And they're saying now, there's an interim relief hearing. That's another aspect of it, which we want the proposed rates to be implemented from the 1st of November. And finally then, Lynnport is asking that this will now be the major public hearing, that for a revenue requirement of $46.5 million after known and measurable changes. And that's where the crunch of the matter then would become, in the public hearing.
So what would you say are your main reasons, or your main reason for pushing back against their request?
So I would have said earlier that a main reason really is to make sure that we have, rates that are affordable. That's, and that means a balance on all sides. So, one, we have a situation where we know that at this point in time, our ratepayers are struggling, as I've said that before. We also know that with Lynnport, we got to make sure that they can provide good service. So the main reason really would be to make sure that we could do our best to be able to say, look, we want reasonable terms that customers can pay the rates, and still we can have good electricity in the country. That's what we're looking for.
So the Barbados Light and Power Company is adamant that it's been delaying this request as long as possible. It's looking out for customers and trying to make sure that things are affordable. But right now, it's adamant that the increase is needed at this point. Are you satisfied with that?
So Cheyne, Light and Power is correct that they've not had an increase since the decision of 2010. Yeah. Now, I would also ask you, it was not recently that the public workers didn't have an increase for many years as well. I've also would say to you that we did not have an increase in the minimum wage for many years as well. So what did people have to do? People therefore had to be a lot more efficient. They had to be then, do things a bit differently. So those were some of the things. The issue for me then would be that in the case of Lynnport, here's what happens. Lynnport is currently now at the moment still paying dividends, yeah? But Lynnport would say to you, even before that we had responded to a request by government to defer an application which you wanted to bring previously. That is true, from what they're saying in the application. I have no doubts to dispute that. But Lynnport has also had the opportunity to earn, what we would call windfall earnings as a result when government itself reduce the tax rate from about around 20% to, to 2.5% in that vicinity. It was a sliding scale, but I think these things can be verified. But it was a substantial reduction. And that all accrued to Leighton Port. Typically, you'll see that. At times, those will have to be, adjustments will have to be in that effect. We also have the situation now where, in addition to that, Leighton Port in itself paid dividends even before the rates increase, and they're still making a profit. So there are opportunities for Leighton Port then, in our view, to be able to be a lot more efficient and still at the same time allow customers and businesses at this point to get some ease, because these are tough times. And my team, including Dr. Ali Alfar, Mr. Adlai Stevenson, and myself, along with the other interveners, will have a lot more to say about that.
One of the hot button words that we've been hearing is transparency. Do you think the Barbados Light and Power has been as transparent as it can be in this process, and what ways can you think it can improve on transparency?
There's always going to be asymmetry between the person who has all the information and the person who is getting it. So, there has been areas where you would have liked to see it been better, and I'll give you some examples like that. We, for example, requested the non-consolidated financial statements from Leighton Power from 2009 to 2020. You're not going to be able to assess how well Leighton Power performed without looking at the non-consolidated audited financial statement, which looks at Leighton Power, and they are audited every year. We requested that information from December, January, okay? We have only just recently received that, and I mean recent by last month, right? Now, a transparent information that is available, that just, because you cannot do the rate hearing without understanding those numbers behind, the rate hearing. The other aspect of it would be that Leighton Power, at this point in time, if you ask what is the dividend policy, you're not clear of what that is. But what we do know is that the policy is such that last year, 2021, Leighton Power made $24.6 million, but they paid dividends of $25 million. That's in the same statements I mentioned to you. In 2020, they did not pay dividend. Their profit at that time was $28.7 million. They were going for rates, that's understandable. But the previous year, in 2019, Leighton Power made $53.4 million and paid dividends of $55 million. So these are the kind of things now that we would want to see come earlier. Also, you hear a lot about the steam plant discussion. Leighton Power, in the last rate hearing of 2009, decision 2010, asked that there be given an order to be able to order immediately by the end of 2009 the steam plant, which would then be, they're not off the shelf, it would then be installed and commissioned in 2012. Now, let's don't argue, let's say that there was good reason, whatever those good reasons were, which we will dispute. But let's say they were. It means that there should be some cost-benefit analysis presented to the Commission well in advance to say, look, we don't think because of these reasons, this is what would be. We should not be having this discussion, monthly, especially when those steam plants meant what? In Leighton Power's word, the change in those plants to medium speed units, diesel units, would have meant that customers would save $30 million per year. So if you want to change that decision, you better bring something that shows a cost benefit. So those are the areas for transparency and so on that, we really need to be better. The good news is that, and more recently where the information is coming through, the problem that it gives us is that you don't get a lot of information, but in a very condensed period. Yeah, that's the challenge.
Well, the Barbados Light and Power Company has said that all the information about the hearing has been available for months. So what is your response to that?
Yeah, now, if that was the case, as you know, that would have been true if it was just the 1,300 pages application. But the interrogatories we've said before, we've also, said to you that those non-consolidated financial statements should have been given one time. You can't do a hearing without looking at them, So in that case, that really is not quite accurate.
In your view, Mr. Went, what is a reasonable return on equity for the Barbados Light and Power?
Now, a real comprehensive analysis is required to give that. Cheyne, a really good comprehensive analysis is good to do that. But here's what I would say to you. There are some things to give us some pointers. Now, just to understand this, you have a capital structure that's typically debt and equity. And there could be some preferred shares and so on, but for the most part, those are the big ones. Now, in 2010, the interest rate paid on debt was 5.25%. And that's in the decision of 2010. So, you can check these numbers. Light and Power at the time requested 13.5% as the return on equity. That would have meant that they were requesting a spread of 8.75%. That spread is just the difference between the interest paid to debt and what they're looking to get for a return. Okay, 8.75. Remember, the board, the commission, approved 10% return on equity, which means, therefore, that the spread was actually 4.75%. Now, let's come to 2020, the application, which we will have some discussion on that. Here's what happened, Cheyne. Light and Power, in its application, says the cost of debt is now 2.78%, which previously I told you was what? 5.25% back then. But Light and Power is now asking for 12.5%, having been approved 10% by the last hearing. So it means that Light and Power, in effect, is now asking now for a spread of anywhere between 10.72% between the, come on. So if you look at that and you say the spread on the last occasion was 4.75, the difference between the interest on debt and the returns to the equity. If we even say that, Light and Power, instead of 4.75%, we will give you 5.75% in these times, if that was the case. 5.75 plus 2.78 will run us anything between, 8.3 and maybe 9%. So that should give you a guide. This is a very sort of proxy on that kind of thing, but very detailed analysis required to really come up with a figure. So it's one of those things that, we can, in these times with interest much lower, that's what you would tend to expect.
Here's a question for you. You're privy to the numbers. Has the Barbados Light and Power Company been making a huge profit?
The simple answer is yes. And you're going to hear a lot more about that. We can share more at this point. I would want, though, to be able to hold some of it back, but for one thing, you have to ask yourself to assess that. What were the profits over the last few years that Light and Power made? And what dividends have they paid? And what did I told you before? I told you Light and Power made a profit of 53.4 million in 2019, and they paid a dividend of 55 million. In 2018, they made 69.4 million, paid a dividend of 12 million. In 2017, they made a profit of 55 million and paid 33 million. And there's more that we're going to have to see on this, but Light and Power has done that. And Light and Power has, got to be able to tell us, why they say that they didn't do as well. But yes, Light and Power has made these profits.
As a journalist, recently in the last year and a half, I've been covering so many stories about the high cost of living, the high cost of fuel prices. Everything seems to be going up, and not only in Barbados, around the region and around the world. How is it different right now that Light and Power is asking for an increase? What's different about them? Why should everything else be going up, but not their prices?
Over the past years. Let's go even before the pandemic and the Ukraine war and those things. What had we seen? We had seen that there have been a struggle for businesses and for the general individuals to be able to make ends meet. And they've had to, as I said before, make some serious adjustments in all areas. Okay. So if you take one specific example, the fuel charge on your electricity bill, who is that borne by? That entire cost is borne by who? The consumer. It is borne by the businesses, the small businesses. So if it increases, it doesn't affect Lenpor. If it decreases, it does not affect Lenpor. How much are we talking about? Over 50% of your bill is the fuel charge. In 2020, the fuel charge was nearly $203 million. Right? I think, if I can remember correctly, in 2021, the fuel charge is now $271 million. Now that's 2021, where at that time in March last year, the Light Port's own information from one of their officers pointed out that oil was $60 per barrel at that time, and we know oil is now 61. Our oil is now, by March of this year, is 120. So there is a cost that directly going out to that Light Port don't face. However, in all fairness to Light Port, we can remember here for equity, Light Port has to buy systems, it has to buy generators, it has to buy parts, materials, and so on. So persons who, their suppliers, to clearly have higher costs for the items that they too have to buy. But what is the difference here? The difference here is simply this. The tourists are not coming out for the hotels. So what happens? But we're paying the rates. Like many hotels can't do the refurbishment. That's one sector. You see what's happening in retail. You can walk through Bridgetown. You see many of the businesses that are, have been closed in Bridgetown. So it has to be a case where, in my view, what is required is that the Barbados Light and Power Company is going to have to temper its expectations on its returns, as all of us had to do.
How optimistic are you that the interveners can stop this request from being granted?
We have confidence in the Fair Trading Commission. We have presented some compelling arguments to the FTC on the case. There have been numerous documents presented. Now, our hearing, though, is a very, very, I would say a very structured exercise. What do I mean by that? You first have to be able to look at what are the known and measurable changes in there. And it's known, all it says, what do we expect that will be different from what happened before? But now Light Paul has said that, for example, its depreciation expense, an example of that would be the Clean Energy Bridge, where the Clean Energy Bridge and the application was $133 million, and the first year of that on a 25-year life would mean that's $5.3 million. But look at Light and Power. All of the diesel plants that they have has lasted more than, I think one is 40 years, 30 years or more. So we argue that the life of 25 years should be 30, 33 years. And the reasons for that is that their experience alone, and now that diesel plant, is only going to be, and I share the view, that it's only going to be for resilient purposes and so on, because by that time we're renewable energy. But it's like if you get lots of rain or you get the systems break down, you want to have that plant. That plant's going to last a long time. But remember, diesel plant, its life depends on its usage a lot, but it's not going to be used for the most part, because otherwise you won't go to renewable energy. So it's going to last a long time. So don't let it hit the ratepayers now with a 25-year life when it could be 30, 33.
Well, if the request is granted by the FTC, is that the end of the road? Is it just game over, or is there a process for you to appeal or something like that?
Yes. Fortunately, well, the rate-making process allows what you call first a review. So if it is that the rates were not granted, but the company has the right to request a review. Equally, if the rates were granted, the interveners we have the right to request a review. And then the FTC will go on review, we would present arguments and points and so on. Now that review could either go in our favor or it can go against us. Now, typically it could go in Light and Power's favor or it could against, depending on whether the rates were denied. But now either party depends on the position after that review. If they were still not satisfied, they now could appeal now to the law courts. But remember, the law courts now are only, you could only appeal on points of what you call points of law. So, as per my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but predominantly, you know, if you go to law courts, and that would then be settled on points of law. So you'll find that a lot of time is spent making sure that the legal aspect of, you know, hearing, it's a legal matter. That ultimately, if you have to go in a court of law, that you can get a decision. And then a decision will be made at that point, which then will be final.
Mr. Went, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to share with us. So you're now keeping everyone in the know with the exact role of the intervener in the upcoming rate hearing.
You're so welcome, John. I want to thank you as well for giving us the opportunity to share that perspective with us. And we hope that the presentation would have also give the listeners a better understanding. Thank you very much.